everybody. Welcome back to Business Bits, where John and Michael talk to everybody about different specific business tips or business bits that will help you in your business or, Dad, potentially along the ways of retirement, because business owners have unique situations when it comes to retirement, such as funding their retirement plans all the way on their own. They don't necessarily have an employer match unless they set it up for themselves. They don't have a pension unless they set it up for themselves. And they don't really have someone there to guide them along the way. So business owners have unique situations when it comes to retirement planning specifically. And that's kind of why we started this show to begin with.
Well, it is, yeah, absolutely. Business owners really are entrepreneurial in spirit. They're taking risk every day. There's a lot of uncertainty as to where your next paycheck may be coming from. But they do that because they think they have something to offer the marketplace that's differentiated, that's unique, whether it's a product or service that customers hopefully are going to love. But also, they don't have things guidelined for them. Like an employee typically knows what their benefit package is going to be. They know if they're eligible for a 401k, what the employer match is going to be, and if there's a safe harbor profit sharing. So business owners really have to create everything from the ground up. So while the excitement can be palpable, it also can be absolutely petrifying depending on where you are in the cycle. And every business owner has to deal with that. There is no getting around it.
Yep, and we're coming to you all the way from Florida. Florida has some unique advantages for business owners as well as some unique disadvantages. A lot of people move to Florida because you can get a very low tax rate, especially as far as your income is related, because we have a nice fat zero on that.
But zero tax.
Exactly, zero tax, but some of the benefits of living in Florida definitely come with some cons. Because, Dad, you were talking to me a little bit before we hopped on the show about how Florida is the 5th worst state when it comes to litigation and essentially suing people with frivolous lawsuits when it comes to the business owner. It looks like we do get the title of the sue me state, and when it comes to businesses,
unfortunately,
that could be quite true, because on average, the average American living in Florida pays an extra $4,400 a year to their taxes that go directly towards these frivolous lawsuits, because at the end of the day, you and I have to pay for these things because it's part of our American duties.
That's right. You know, it's really amazing in a dichotomy, Mike, because people flock to the Florida Peninsula for the weather, the balmy weather. The business climate is very good. There's great creditor protections and things of that nature. But we also have this gummed up judicial system when it comes to corporate law. A lot of frivolous lawsuits. As you said, the fifth worst state in the country for that. And it costs the average consumer or resident of Florida over $4,000. That's a stunning number. So the governor, Ron DeSantis, promised to look into what to do about that, perhaps legislatively or deregulation. But at the end of the day, it gets you to think about, if you're a business owner, what are you going to do to ethically provide for your business and offer your services or product, but also protect your enterprise? Because, you know, there's always a lawsuit that's just lurking around the corner. So one thing you may want to do is make sure you have the right corporate structure. And I can't tell you what that is because I'm not a tax lawyer and I'm not giving you legal advice. I don't even know your situation. But I will say, very often a limited liability company with 2 or more members basically can dilute a little bit of the risk, because that's kind of a protected, that's an entity that protects you from some personal liability if you structure it properly and make sure that you file your tax returns and act accordingly as a business in mind, spirit, and in administration. And I think the second thing, Michael, is a lot of the 401ks, or what we call the ERISA retirement plans, 401ks, 403bs, that employers can set up for their own welfare and employees, have some unique statutory protections under the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974. Normally, those investments are protected from creditors' rights, which is a great, great thing. Now, the IRS is far-reaching. They can go after, I think, money almost any place, anytime. But it gives you a tremendous amount of protection that you wouldn't have if you just put money in a bank account or a Merrill Lynch brokerage account that was an individual account. So really, Mike, great things to think about for business owners, because remember, even though the Florida business environment can be fantastic in many ways, there are definitely pitfalls. And the fact that we are number 5 worst state in the country for litigious litigation litigation in the corporate arena, gumming up the works of the judicial system and frivolous lawsuits is really disturbing. So take that to heart, folks, and figure out what you could or should do about it.
Yep, absolutely. I want to go back a little bit because you mentioned LLCs, and I know a lot of Floridians have LLCs in place, especially the single or solo practitioner business owner. That's usually how most people structure their business entities, but you said something very wise, and it's that you need two people to really get the benefits of an LLC, and many people don't really realize that because they set up their LLC, they think they have the protection, but unless you have two members, to my understanding, you don't have the protection that you think you would have.
That's right. Yeah, you have to have two or more members, is my understanding. This is for the state of Florida. You'd have to check with your tax attorney in other states. But at the end of the day, very, very true. There has to be a multi-member LLC in order to get the benefits. And so I know many, many people that have set up simply single-person LLCs, and it's not really offering the primary mode of asset protection, which is protecting the assets from judgment. And the only remedy to the creditor is what we call a charging order, where they can attach income if distributed by the LLC, but usually the membership agreement calls forth that the managing member can basically retain assets for reinvested capital in the business without distribution, but cause the person that gets a judgment against you to basically be burdened with the taxes on that phantom income. Can you imagine that, getting knocked out with a K-1, having to pay tax on money you can't even receive? That's about a worthless piece of paper if you've got a judgment and you are the creditor trying to attack somebody's assets. So very important, Mike, just to really think about what is unique about Florida, what the great opportunities are, but also what the shortfalls are. And these are some of the things that are unusual for a financial advisor to engage with a consumer about, or a business owner. But we do it because, number one, we're business owners. Number two, we therefore kind of share that culture, that same language. And number three, we think that to do proper planning through our retirement compass review process, you have to look at the business holistically as well as the finances of the individual investor. Because if your business is your primary means of support, you're going to be using that to fund and diversify your retirement. So we want to make sure you take necessary measures to protect your business interests.
Yep, absolutely. Well, what are some things that people can do to protect their business from creditors outside of structuring it the most beneficial way for them, such as an LLC, S Corp, or if you're a larger company, a corporation? Beyond structuring your business for the right way, what are other things business owners can do to protect some of their assets? They've worked so hard all their life. They don't want to give it up when they finally step away to retire.
Well, I think you've hit on a couple of them, Mike. Number one is to have a multi-member LLC. Number two is to use retirement plans, not sparingly, but abundantly if you qualify. Number three is to dilute risk by diversification, having multiple entities that have interrelationships. For instance, if you're in a business where you lease equipment, you actually could basically have a separate company maybe that buys your equipment, that takes depreciation, and then with agreement leases it back to you, and you're making lease payments to that company, and that company is segregated or separate and apart from the business that you conduct commerce with the general public, or through commerce through to the general public. So you give a measure of diversification and protection through diluting or diversification, very similar to if somebody was going to invest in the stock market. It would not be prudent to put all your hard-earned money in one company stock, even if it's a great company. Look at what happened to GE. What a disaster. It used to be the darling of Wall Street. Now it's been taken out to the woodshed more times than I care to think about, and investors that have held those shares for the long term are heartbroken. So diversification is a big key to it, Mike. But we could go on and on. I think hopefully our listener or our viewership here is getting the idea that you really got to think smart and prudently. And I would say one other thing, Mike, that most business owners, myself and yourself probably included, we get caught up in the tactical day-to-day, doing the daily business, the transactional stuff, the making the calls, the meeting the client, doing the planning, taking care of needs, producing your product. Tremendously important, because if you don't do that well, you're out of business. But at the same time, there is always a place for stepping away and thinking a little more globally and then strategically about some of the bigger issues, right? Because it's kind of like when you're in the forest, right? You know, chopping down that one tree, you can't see the whole forest. When you're in the forest chopping down that one tree, you got to step back, you know, so you can see the forest, when you step away from the one tree. And that's what we're trying to educate and provoke people's thinking about, because I just don't think most business owners have the time or the energy or the bandwidth to do it. And as you can imagine, just from this little conversation today, there's so many facets to it. We try to be a reasoned voice and help guide people through the landmines of business on some of these very, very important topics that are oftentimes sorely overlooked.
Yep, it's Monday today, but when
Monday.
we blink, it will be over. This has been Business Bits. We are coming to you with unique and great perspectives. Kind of messed that one up.
Hopefully they're great.
But unique and great perspectives, at least I think so, each and
I hope
every
so.
week. I know many people don't realize that the LLC has to be structured in a way where you have two members. Many people don't realize that Florida does have some very beneficial things when it comes to taxes.
That's correct,
But
yeah.
it is a very litigious state, or we call it the sue me state.
Sue me.
So
Go
you
ahead
have
and
to
sue
make
me.
sure you're protected, especially starting with how you structure your business.
Sure.
And then as a business owner, you have to be making sure you're taking advantage of those retirement accounts, because there are some protection in some of those accounts as well.
No doubt there are. So folks, it's really been a great time to be with you today. Hopefully this gives you a little thinking on the subject of asset protection in the context of business ownership. And I hope you'll continue to visit us, because Michael and I are going to be bringing unique curated content that we think is insightful and valuable. We'll let you ultimately be the judge of that, but we're going to continue to be actionable and bring forth ideas, thoughts, and stories that we think will be helpful to you.
Yes, absolutely. And if you head on over to businessbits.tips, you could actually get our free report, the five things that successful business owners, or the
Keep it
five,
going.
we're going to do it all over again, the five mistakes that successful business owners make when working with a financial advisor. And if you check that out and read it all the way through, there is a little bonus tip as well. So you'll get the 5 mistakes that business owners make when working with financial advisors. Just head on over to businessbits.tips, get that free report, check it on out. Tell us how you enjoy it, and make sure you come back for next show, because, Dad, we keep doing them as long as people keep watching and listening to them.
That's right. And folks, it's always great to be with you. Michael and I are going to basically get on out of here, but I always like to finish up the program with my paraphrase of the old Irish prayer. May the wind be gently at your back, my friend. May the sun shine warmly on your face. May the misty low road rise up to meet the high road. And until our paths meet again, my friend, may God anoint you with good health, richly bless you, and have a magnificent day. Goodbye now.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the videos. If you got some more free time, I know you do, make sure you check this video out right here. And if you don't like that one, make sure you check this one out too, or just watch them both. See you guys soon.